tomorrow's World Food Day. So excited, and I'm really excited to celebrate with this panel. So my name is Erin. I'm the Sustainable Food Programs Coordinator at UC Merced, and we're here today to talk to a variety of folks on surplus food, food rescue, and other initiatives. So we can begin with some introductions. Kayla, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kayla Birdsong with Fresh Food Connect, and I'm in Denver.
Thank you. Jennifer England.
Hi, I am Jennifer England. I am with Food Rescue Hero and 412 Food Rescue, and I am in Pittsburgh.
Awesome. Thank you. And Mary could not make it, so Jamie from Boulder Food Rescue asked to join in also. So Jamie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm actually from Denver Food Rescue.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Boulder Food Rescue, of course.
I'm also really confused because there's another person here named Jamie Anderson.
I know.
Anyway, I am the program director at Denver Food Rescue.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, we should jump in. I'm excited about this. And anyone can answer questions. So let's get started. Can you tell us about some of your successes, milestones, or most rewarding experience within your work?
Actually, we just had a huge milestone. We just hit 20 million pounds of rescued food in Pittsburgh in the last week. And so that's really exciting. We were at 10 million last summer. And it took us from 2015 until last summer to get to 10 million. And then we jumped ahead. We're at 20 million now. So that's pretty exciting. And we're at 65 million across our network of Food Rescue Hero partners.
That's fantastic.
One thing that is really exciting for us right now is this past summer, we won a grant from Denver's new Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency to purchase some electric cargo bikes because we deliver rescued food using bikes. And we wanted to make our program open to volunteers who maybe wanted some electric assistance to pull food, and also to be able to do some longer food routes. So our bikes are arriving next week.
I'll share a win. So for those of you who don't know what Fresh Food Connect does, just really briefly, I'm sure we'll get to this, but we connect gardeners with hunger relief organizations through an app. And we do that. It started in Denver and has now spread across the US. And my win is that we just had an organization sign up with us in Guam, which is our first one outside the continental US. So we're really excited about that.
Wow, congratulations. It makes me think we should talk a little bit about what each of your organization does a little bit. So you each have your own niche, which is really cool. So Jen, do you want to kind of talk about yours?
Yeah, so I kind of wear two hats or have two organizations. 412 Food Rescue is a food rescue organization that started in 2015. And it's, it's food rescue. We had volunteers that would go pick up food and take it to places that that needed food. We were having, I wouldn't say we were having trouble scaling, but when we started, it was just myself and Leia Lizarando. And so we wanted to grow faster than we were able to. And so we thought, this would be perfect for an app. So we developed an app to help us do food rescue. And we started going to a lot of conferences and talking to folks about this, and more people were interested. And so out of that grew Food Rescue Hero. And Food Rescue Hero is a technology platform that allows other organizations to basically to utilize it to mobilize their food rescue heroes, like a rideshare program, basically, where the food is the passenger. And then we also provide support to those organizations. I see Sheila from 530 Food Rescue here. She's one of our newest partners. And so we are up to, I think we will be at 16 or 17 organizations around the country using the technology and the platform in the network by the end of the year.
I'll go. That's awesome to hear, Jennifer. I wanted to connect with you with Food Rescue Hero for a while, so we'll chat. So we kind of have, so I'm with Fresh Food Connect. We have a niche that is a little bit maybe different from some of the organizations that you all may think of when you think of food rescue. So, or food waste even. What we're doing is we're really looking to build a movement around homegrown food and help having gardeners and even people who don't maybe identify as gardeners, who have a fruit tree, or like me, a bad gardener, who can grow a little bit, have us actually participate in the food system in a meaningful way by contributing. So what that looks like is basically allowing gardeners to donate their homegrown food or food that's grown in community gardens to hunger relief organizations in their own neighborhood. So it keeps food hyper local. So say that I'm in Aurora, just outside Denver. There's an organization about a mile away from my house, and I can go onto my app and coordinate a delivery of donated garden produce to them. And I know that that food is staying within my neighborhood and that it's going to people who are participating in their food programs. So we work with different organizations. We work with a lot of food rescue organizations, actually, basically to bring more produce to the programs that are already happening, to organizations that are the experts on the ground. We're not the experts on the ground. We have, this tool and resource that we can kind of bring in additional super local, beautiful garden food, produce, and we build this network of organizations that are participating. So how it works is we have an app that we license to those organizations. Then those organizations like Denver Food Rescue is one of them. Jamie is representing one of what we call a Fresh Food Connect operator. So these organizations serve as operators. They get the donations from gardeners and then they distribute in the channels that they already have. And kind of the really unique thing I think about Fresh Food Connect is that what we're doing is we're trying to build a movement around all of us being able to contribute a little bit and have it add up and make a big difference. And if you think about, the perspective of the organizations, the food rescue organizations, the food pantries, the food banks, the churches that have a little grocery program, for them, it's pretty difficult to coordinate, all of potential donations from all of these gardeners when a gardener is bringing you a little box of apples or a few heads of lettuce. And so we make that really easy for the gardener and for the organization to kind of take out those barriers. And I'll just add that we started here in Denver and now we're working in over 20 states, and that the challenge for us is getting the word out and getting gardeners to sign up and start donating.
Okay, so I'll go. I just wanted to look up how many pounds of food we had gotten this summer from Fresh Food Connect, but I'm not logged into the app. But I know it's a lot. It's several thousand pounds of food that we've gotten from Fresh Food Connect this summer. And our programs love receiving it because it is just like the most beautiful, fresh produce imaginable. So Denver Food Rescue, we're an organization that builds health equity with neighborhoods throughout Denver. One of the ways that we do this is we have 22 no-cost grocery programs, which are located in different communities around the city. And then we have one that's just over the border into Aurora, which is kind of the large suburb to the east of Denver. And what we primarily do is connect food donors to these programs with our volunteers bringing food from the food donor to the no-cost grocery program. And then the no-cost grocery program itself is run by members of the community. And we provide whatever kind of support they need. Some of them are totally fine to just accept the food from our volunteers and they can take off and do whatever they need to do. Whereas other programs, like we pay a small stipend to the volunteers, we provide them with supplies that they need to distribute food, things like that. Our food donors are primarily grocery stores and wholesalers. We also have a few university cafeterias. And our volunteers, like I mentioned before, use bicycles. They also use cars because sometimes the weather's bad in Denver. though our bicyclists are very intrepid. Our volunteer manager is originally from West Africa, and last winter he was always shocked by the conditions that our bicyclists were willing to go out in, just pretty funny. But we also use a car sometimes because, you know, Denver's a city that's really rapidly gentrifying, and it also has some pretty significant food deserts. So sometimes the distance between a grocery store and where a community that wants a no-cost grocery program is a very long way, too long for a bike ride, basically. So I think that about covers it for Denver Food Rescue.
Amazing. What are you doing, if anything, around prevention of food waste and surplus food? As we know, if you're familiar with EPA food waste hierarchy, the best thing we can do for food waste is to prevent it from happening in the first place. So do y'all have any prevention methods, or even just tips for consumers to help them prevent their own food waste?
I'll jump in. Again, I'm kind of niche on the preventing the waste of homegrown food, which is significant. We don't have there's not a lot of research and stats that I can share, because I think it's one of the hidden forms of food waste. But we do, and that's pretty much why Fresh Food Connect was created a few years ago, is that we're seeing a lot of waste on the gardening side and in community gardens and in the home. You know, we see that sometimes, you know, you get a seed packet, there's way too many seeds in a seed packet. You grow them all, or you plant, you know, you get excited about tomatoes and you plant 5 tomato plants. Well, newsflash, your family can probably not eat that many tomatoes. Here in Denver, the issue is zucchini. We leave zucchini on each other's porches during season. So we're really looking at, you know, how to keep that from going into the waste stream by donating within neighborhoods.
One thing that Denver Food Rescue does, which I didn't mention, is we have a class that we teach to kids in Denver public schools and at after school programs that is called Self-Sufficiency and Nutrition in the Kitchen. And a big part of it is about teaching kids basically like where food comes from, how to make a meal, because I think a lot of the kids that we speak to are in homes where the parents are working until after, you know, the kids might want to eat a snack. So we're trying to teach them how to prepare a meal for themselves that is like a healthier meal than just like a frozen burrito or something. So with this class, we talk a lot about issues of food waste and issues of composting. We also try to provide compost to as many of our no-cost grocery programs as we possibly can. Sometimes there are logistical reasons why we can't, but those are some of the ways that we're working on that individual food waste issue. Also, of course, being a Fresh Food Connect operator. So I grew 6 pumpkins this year. They're really big pumpkins. I weighed one yesterday and it was over 34 pounds. So I can show you guys them in a minute if you'd like, but I donated 3 of them through Fresh Food Connect yesterday. So it's reducing my garden waste.
Yeah, this is such an important question because 40% or more, 43%, depending on which statistic you use, of food waste is generated at home. And that's the hardest sector to address, right? It's because it's happening in individual homes and it's changing behavior. But one thing I've really seen is that the presence of a food rescue organization in a community generates these conversations about food waste and about the impact of food waste. And I know that a lot of our volunteers end up really becoming passionate about not wasting food at home, as well as rescuing food to go to people in need. And so I just think that there's so much education that needs to be done around the issue of the impact of food waste and how to prevent it, and steps you can take at home to minimize it or mitigate it, that is really promulgated by having this surge in food rescue organizations around the country.
I agree. And I have a degree in I have a master's in sustainable and resilient food systems. And it wasn't until that degree where we started talking about food waste. I have a degree in nutrition, and that was never brought up at all either. Um, this should be taught to kids. So props to everyone doing that work. I think I'm saying your name right. Priya, do you have a question for us? I saw your hand raised earlier.
Sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
No, I was, I was about to answer for that question. We are a little organization in El Paso, Texas. We are 3 years old. We have like drop-off locations. We are satellite locations right now. We don't have central thing. We make people do like quality control check to reduce the amount of food waste in our community.
Awesome. Thank you. And if anyone has questions, feel free and put them in the chat. I wanted to talk a little bit about equity, diversity, and inclusion. So what can food rescue operations such as us do better, and how can we better embed EDI into our operations?
I mean, go ahead, Kayla, if you want to go.
Sure. So before I'll kind of talk about my background just a little bit, because I think it at least steers the way that I think about this question. So I have been working more closer to community than I am now for the last 9 years in Northeast Denver, in a in a neighborhood that is a food desert and a food swamp, and has really high barriers to accessing really any amenities, but especially food. And in the neighborhood, I got a lot of chances to work with neighbors on co-creating programs and fixing problems with the programs. And what I really realized was that, and this is maybe very obvious, but there's no one size fits all solution to food access. You can't drop food into a neighborhood and say like, okay, great, now there's food access. It really needs to come from the community. And when I left that organization, I was really thinking about how can we do more of this really deep work in community without losing that depth and that genuine decision making by community members, but do more of it across the country and make it easier for everyone to do that. And so that's kind of has steered me in my path, and now doing this work that is a tool for organizations. And the thing that I love about Fresh Food Connect and our approach, and I think this is the approach of a lot of organizations that we work with, is that we trust community, and that means for us that we trust our operators like Denver Food Rescue or whatever food pantry is working with us. We've created a tool that is very adaptable. So we do not think that our solution is the right solution for every neighborhood at all, and instead it's about making tools available and really leaning on our organizations that are in communities to make sure that they are the ones making decisions with their community members. And so, I think that as we think about national solutions, it's really important to think about what is not a one size fits all solution, because those don't work. Imposing the way that we think something should work in a community, it doesn't happen that way. And so, I think I know that a lot of you are working like on the neighborhood level, which is so important. And when I think about what's going to make a really big difference across the country, it's all of those individual neighborhood efforts that are so tailored and that are really coming from community members. And then, how can we, rising tide raises all ships, right? So that's how I think.
Yeah, this is a really, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to enter into this question, because there's a lot of different entry points, and it's so central to the work that we do and the question that we ask ourselves every day. And there's two parts to that. One is, how can we do that within our own organization? But the second part, and I'm going to really punt and not answer that one, I'm going to talk about how we can do that in terms of our operations. And food rescue provides a really unique opportunity to increase food access and to sort of focus on food justice and equity when it comes to food access, because you have all of this extra food that was being thrown away or people don't know what to do with. And so it exists outside of the sort of hunger system that has been chugging along for years. And so one of the big shocks we found when we started was that we would have food and we would have nowhere to take it. Free food, like we'll give you this amazing food, but the organizations that were already serving people who were food insecure, they had their supply chain, right? And they had food for that week and they didn't need any more. So we had to go outside of that traditional supply chain and look for other places to distribute food. And that gave us an opportunity to rethink how we were distributing food and what a food access point could look like. And so we started working with organizations whose main function wasn't hunger or addressing hunger, but what they work with people who were food insecure and maybe struggled with food access. So Housing Authority was one of our first really big and unique partners. And we would take food directly into the communities, directly into the senior high rises, and basically bring food to people's doors. Low-income daycare centers and low-income Head Start programs that had parent education and preschool for the kids and whatnot, we would work with them. And so it removes some of the barriers for food access, like time and transportation, because whatever else you want to do, say somebody who is low income is going to go pick up their kids, right? No matter what other barriers they face in life, they're getting there to pick up their kids from that daycare. That's one of the most important things they have to do, or they're getting home from work, right? And so if the food is already there where they already are, it removes those barriers and it presents food support in a more dignified manner as well. You know, you're not necessarily filling out forms or waiting in line. You're just going to pick up your kids and you get a bag of groceries and go home. And so that sort of that opportunity for us kind of changed how we thought about food access and changed our approach. And we really ended up modeling our entire approach to food distribution based on that sort of rethinking about food access, equity, and justice.
Yeah, I think both of you guys had some really good, interesting things to say. A few other things that I would add. So Denver Food Rescue doesn't go into communities and ask people, would you like our food resources? We let communities come to us. So we only start a program after someone has come to us and said that we're interested in this service. Also, I think that, you know, one of the things that we talk about a lot, and which the founders of Denver Food Rescue observed, is that the current food pantry system that exists in the Denver area has a lot of food that is not nutritious and is just kind of not nice. Like, it's not exciting food for people to see when they're receiving free food. And so a big focus of ours is on we try to serve at least 70 to 80% fresh produce, for example. We do almost entirely fresh food of other kinds. And that feels like, you know, we want to make our programs feel like a grocery store. Like, it's just like a great experience where you get to choose what you receive, and you don't have to provide any information to us to use our programs. We don't take ID or ask for income or anything like that. Unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of our programs had to shift away from that grocery store model, but we are really hoping that at some point we can get back to a point where people can browse through the food. Additionally, you know, income inequality is a huge issue that has led to a lot of problems in Denver. Also, like historic redlining, all the various issues that I'm sure you guys are aware of, that we try to rectify a little bit through things like direct cash payments, like having stipends for members of the community who volunteer with us. We try to write that into our grants. We're trying to pay people who fill out our surveys. because community feedback is really important to us. And we want to pay people for the time that they take to fill those out. Yeah, and then also within our organization, we have 7 full-time employees. 4 of them are people of color. We try to hire in a way that is, you know, raising people up and saying, like, we see the potential in someone to do a job rather than just immediately looking for someone with the highest qualifications.
Yeah, and I just want to add that I don't I don't know the full details, but I know that one of the engineers, software engineers we just hired was somebody who had gone through like a retraining program. And so when we were looking to hire an engineer, that's the first place we looked, was somewhere that was working within a community of people who had barriers to employment and were retraining in software development. And so there's lots of programs out there like that. And it's a great place to start your hiring in order to bring you know, inclusion and diversity to your workforce, rather than, like you said, just going straight to the, you know, the Carnegie Mellon grads down the street that are a dime a dozen and flooding us with resumes. No offense to Carnegie Mellon, if any of you were from there.
I have a follow-up question real quick for Jamie. I love that idea of not going into a neighborhood and telling them, we're gonna start a program here and hopefully it works for you. I don't know. I love that they're coming to you. But my question is, how do they know that? Do you have something on the website that says, if you want us in your community, like, how do people know that without being unfamiliar? Like, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I am not 100% sure how the first program got started, but since then, I think it's been pretty word of mouth. We do have a form on our website, which just directs people to email me if they're interested in starting a program. And also, you know, we ride these bike trailers around that are branded with our names. So we have a lot of visibility in the community. We had a summer program where we employed some teens to use our branded bike trailers, and community members were texting us pictures of them doing unsafe things on the bikes. So I think we're just like, we've got a lot of visibility, a lot of good word of mouth among people. Like, several of our programs have started because kind of similar to what Jennifer was saying, a lot of them are at schools. And so people pick up a bag of food when they're picking up their kids. And we have several schools where multiple branches of that school now have a no-cost grocery program because they saw it at one and they wanted it at another branch of it. So also, I think Priya had her hand up.
Yes, indeed. Priya, do you want to ask? It looks like you also put something.
I already tried the question. It's for Kayla. Do you work with small stores or just homegrown veggies only? Or do you also work with ugly produce people as well? Like, you know, the store, some of the stores have ugly produce, but they would like to throw it out. Are you planning to work with them, or do you work with them?
No, we don't. So that is something that a lot of other food rescue organizations are doing. And it is something that I think there's already a lot of expertise in that world. That's something that definitely Denver Food Rescue does, and a lot of organizations will facilitate those types of kind of business to business donations, whereas we're really working on individuals who are not affiliated with anything being able to donate what they grow or what they find, like my or maybe not find, but what they have access to. So my friend gave me a box of 13 pounds of peaches that her neighbor couldn't, he was old and he couldn't, get the peaches off of his tree. And she was like, wait a second, can you donate these? I was like, yes, absolutely. They were the best peaches I think I've ever had in my life. And I got to donate those. So we really provide that kind of individual pathway into working in food access in our own communities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to comment on something Jamie said. It was really salient point. And Kayla too, it's that the food that gets wasted most is perishable, right? It's the really fresh, healthy food that people need in their diets that we're supposed to be eating a lot of. And so food rescue has that opportunity of getting that food and getting it to where it can be used before it goes bad. But it also means that the food that food rescue is distributing is 85% fresh food. You know, it's really good food that people need.
Yeah, I was going to say to Priya, that's the kind of food that Denver Food Rescue takes, especially that like ugly produce. The majority of our donors are grocery stores, so we get the produce that doesn't make it onto their shelves for whatever reason. And it's like all really nice produce. Like, yeah, a lot of it is just fantastic stuff. And so if you are looking for someone in your area, maybe try to find like a food rescue or something like that.
We are a food rescue. Our name
Oh,
is
okay. Sorry.
We're a food rescue in El Paso, Texas, as I already mentioned. We are 3 years old. We are having our baby steps going into building things with people right now. So that's why I came into this meeting as well, to the conference. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
So for example, you could sign up as your organization, your little baby organization can sign up as an operator of Fresh Food Connect. And what that would mean is that we help you get gardeners in your community to contribute to your program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we recently just did that too. So we signed up as an operator at the University of California, Merced, to have like all this awesome produce that are hanging all over the trees. We're in the Central Valley of California, so we have fruit year round, basically. It's like a garden haven out here. And we also have a zucchini problem, Kayla, a big zucchini problem. And oranges, lots of oranges, but I digress. So we're using that to get all of this surplus produce into our community fridges, which are like take it or leave it kind of models. People can take free produce or leave free produce. So we're directing our gardeners to drop it off there. And we also recently started, because there's a pickup option and a drop off. So we recently started the pickup option where we can go out and pick up that food from a gardener. All right. Oh, go ahead. Priya, did you have another question?
So thank you for the information. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So why do you do what you do?
I'm such a teacher's pet. I really am. You ask a question and my hand goes up. I can answer. So please, you too, just, you know, tell me to shush and speak when, you know, when I'm jumping on questions first. I can't help it. It's totally innate in my nature. You know, it is so, I love food. I'm a foodie, right? But I also have spent the last 10, 20 years working on issues of social justice. And to me, food rescue is such a confluence of all the things that I'm really passionate about and that are really important and critical at this moment in time. So, I mean, it brings together, you know, addressing climate change. It brings together justice and equity and making sure that people have access to food, and not just any food, but good food, healthy food that they need to thrive. And much like Jamie said, we don't have anybody fill out papers or anything. You know, you're getting this food that somebody was going to throw away. Like, we just give it away. It's fantastic. It is just really, to me, the perfect intersection of, you know, multiple problems becoming the answer to each other's prayers, if you will.
I'll go. Okay, Kayla. For me personally, I was a volunteer with Denver Food Rescue before I started working here. And I was born in Denver, lived here almost my whole life. I really love working as a part of my community and being a part of my hometown that's making positive change. I also strongly believe that, we have about 10 years to try to solve climate change, or else things are going to get very bad. They're already getting kind of bad. So working on like a local solution feels like the best way that I can channel my energy towards that.
I have a lot of similar thoughts to Jennifer and Jamie, but I'll add that I think we all have specific gifts, and we all have ways that our brains work that's different than other people. We all have unique skills and experiences to bring to the table in whatever work it is that we decide to do, either as a career or, as a volunteer or however. But I studied business management in undergrad, and I didn't know that I would end up in the nonprofit field. I just knew that I really enjoyed business, and I also really enjoyed food, and I also really enjoyed learning Spanish, for example. And so I didn't know how that would all come together, and it actually ended up coming together for me in the food nonprofit world. But it took a little while for that all to make sense, and now it does. And when I think about how I want to contribute, how do I want to spend my time, because our work becomes a huge part of our life. I spend more time with my coworker than I do my family. So this work it becomes a huge part of us. And I just realized that I can apply my skills in the best way in this kind of niche of managing nonprofit organizations that do really good work. And so that's how I want to spend my time, is doing something that I feel like I'm good at, and also that's hard. And so, for me, I work in food because, like Jennifer said, food transcends a meal. It goes into every part of all of our lives. And it's also something that all cultures have such amazing practices around food, and it's a connector. It brings all of us together in all of our cultures. And what else could we even talk about that has that kind of power? It's just a really powerful piece of our lives. And I think I have a lot of privileges in my life, that I have food, I have enough food, I have good food. And I think when I realized, as a younger person, that not everyone did, that was really heartbreaking. And so I've just kind of never let go of that heartbreak.
Great answers. So I'm just reading the chat. My next question is kind of relevant to what Kayla was saying as well. What personal actions can we take to reduce our own food waste? But you brought up the point about culture. So it also makes me wonder, is there a particular thing within your cultures that you have implemented around food waste, like different preservation techniques or something like that? Or just general tips if you have them. Like, bringing your shopping list before you go shopping is really helpful. Having a game plan before you go shopping. Shopping at your farmer's market, so it's fresher.
Well, again, through that teaching program that we have, we talk about that a lot. One idea that our director of communications always brings up, which has really captured me, is the idea of doing something similar to Fresh Food Connect, but around canning. So having people actually process all of those millions of zucchinis that we receive donated to us in a way that will be longer lasting than just the life of the fresh vegetable. So I'd love to see someone take that idea and go with it.
Yeah, we actually have a kitchen that we started because we would get, 7 pallets of zucchini or something. And as much zucchini as our folks wanted, they didn't want 7 pallets of it. And so we were looking for a way to stabilize it. When you asked about how we incorporated our culture into prevention of food waste, I was kind of thinking of the organization. And so the 2 ways we've done it are that when we have this super surplus, we work with local merchants to what would you call them? My mind went blank. It is 6:42 on Friday evening where I am. So my brain just was like,
Sorry.
work with somebody who makes ice cream and somebody who makes beer. And so the ice cream maker took our surplus berries and the beer maker took our surplus bread, and they made these products out of this surplus for us so that we were able to turn around as a value added product and support our organization. But again, that also then opens up the conversation with so many people about food waste and making sure that food does not go into the landfill.
I just was reading about, I know this is maybe not answering the question. I was reading about food waste recently, just trying to kind of stay on top of what we currently know. And something that I think someone said, maybe Erin, you said, like, sorry, I don't know who said this, but we should learn, we should learn this as kids. Like, we should learn this when we're younger, and not as an extracurricular thing at 6:42 on a Friday. But, you know, something that we should all understand is that in our landfills, if you look at the single biggest, like the largest single stream thing that's in our landfills in this country, it's by far it's food, and fresh food. And that is a you know, producer of methane gas, which is one of the drivers of climate change. And that while there are all of these things contributing to climate change, food waste, food getting into the landfill is one that we can interrupt that immediately, and it would have a huge impact on the future of climate change. And it's something that you know, that it seems accessible. It seems like we can do that. So I don't know, that helps me when I'm like looking in my fridge and realizing that a bunch of my vegetables are about to go bad. And I'm like, do I just throw them out? Do I compost them? Or do I like make a huge soup at the end of the week with all kinds of random stuff and then freeze it and then eat that, you know, next month or whatever, which is what I tend to do. So I think that like having that awareness is also a really big step. It's not just knowing how to, you know, different tools for when you have food that's going to waste. It's also like understanding why. It's about educating ourselves about why would we take that extra time? Why would we encourage our friends to take that extra time, or encourage our family to, like you said, Erin, go to the grocery store with a list?
Thank you. All right, I want to get to Daniel's question because I'm also wondering the same thing. How do we get older users to get on this app, particularly Fresh Food Connect? Because as Daniel and I are speaking, we recognize that we have a lot of fruit out here. A lot of them are at senior citizens' homes, and they might not want to or know about and how to utilize our app. Not to be ageist or anything, but we have noticed that there are those issues. So how can we get everyone to utilize this app more?
Yeah, this is something that I think about every day. And one thing is that we do have a web app also that's just a website where you can do the same thing. It's not as easy and nifty in my opinion, but I am of a generation who likes having apps on my phone. I think the reality, and something that we've come to terms with at Fresh Food Connect, is that everyone's not going to want to use the app. It's just not reality. And that's okay. You know, it is going to take so many different approaches and solutions to really move the needle on what we're all hoping to do together. And so we have this one little approach. We're working with people who grow food and like want to pick up their phone and use it to connect and donate their food to someone in their, you know, to an organization in their neighborhood. And there's a lot of reasons that people don't want to do that. Or they want to do it and not use the app, or they'll start using the app and then they stop using the app, but they keep that connection with the organization. There's all kinds of things that we're seeing. And for me, it's about, you know, does that person, we have other resources for someone who doesn't want to use an app. I don't care if they use it, to be honest. I mean, I want them to use it because that's my organization, but I just want them to donate the food. I want the food to stay, you know, to go to people who need it. And so, so for me, it's about like looking at other resources that exist and connecting. So us all not being in competition with each other, but working together, and referring people to whatever solution is going to work for them as an individual. And a lot of our operators just help their gardeners learn how to use the app the first time, and then it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I was going to say that we have some older people who donate to us through Fresh Food Connect. And as an operator, I'm always happy to spend some time with them with their phone, helping them figure it out. So
Yeah, our product manager likes to say that our app is so easy. You don't need any instructions to get on and use our app. And I keep telling him he lives in a fantasy world, because there are people that are not going to be comfortable just picking up an app and using it. You have to walk them through it. In fact, I'd say not the majority, but the plurality of our volunteers are older, like young retirees, people that are maybe in their 60s or early 70s. And some of them are quite comfortable with apps, and some of them take hand holding, but we do in-person trainings. We do a lot of personal outreach to individuals and as a group to make them feel comfortable in using it. I did have one couple, after hearing us speak about food rescue, let us know that their kids were forever grateful to us because they went out and got smartphones so they could use the app and they could do food rescue on it. And their kids have been bugging them to get rid of the flip phones forever. So, there's certainly a challenge with some older folks using apps, but we've really been able to work through them with all of our volunteers. They've all adopted it. We don't have any that don't use it. But taking that like personal one-on-one approach when it's needed.
Awesome, great answer. All right, so then there's a question for me. So can you explain more about how you all started it up, like the people's fridges, community fridges, and how do we check for the quality of food that gets dropped off? So it's kind of a long story, but we opened up a pop-up people's pantry down the street from me at this local community garden as a response to COVID and the pandemic and rising food insecurity. And we got in a conversation at one point, my coworker and I, my colleague partner, and the word fridge came up, but it was in the sense of, oh, let's just put a fridge in the house so that we can store some of our garden produce from this community garden. But then I've been playing with this idea for years. Why don't we just open a community fridge in our area? And so we spoke with a variety of people to get it started. So of course we wanted to talk to the neighbors. Is it okay if we open up like a public fridge, an outdoor fridge in your area? It's going to increase traffic and all of those things. And they all approved it. We spoke with our county, so we needed to get it approved with our environmental health and safety department. And with them, we signed up as a limited service charitable feeding operation, which is allowing us to help me address your second question of how we check for quality. So we signed up as a category 2 operator, meaning that we technically only accept produce, but we had a feeling that people were going to donate milk and other items like from schools or school lunches. And so we signed up as a category 2, allowing for people to donate that, but we don't distribute that milk out of the fridge. So if we ever get milk and stuff like that donated, we check for the quality, expiration dates, and all of those things. And then we give it out at our pantry, which is every Saturday. And so we also spoke with our city because we built like a nice little shed around it. You can see pictures at that link that my coworker above me put in the chat. We had to work with city planning to see if building that shed would compromise anything or be a problem. They approved it. And then we got to building the shed. We got some fridges donated, did some marketing and PR, had a grand opening finally. And it opened September 27th of last year. So we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. And since then, we've opened up 2 more. So we've got one at the Delhi High School, and theirs is slightly different than ours. And then we just opened up another one Monday, the 27th of this year to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. We opened up one at the Winton Lifeline Community Development Center. And so there's kind of a bit of the networking that you have to do to open up these fridges. Totally happy to speak with anyone more one-on-one. I love the fridge idea. I think it's such a sustainable answer to a lot of these things. I mean, you could just put a community fridge in some of these food deserts and so on. And they're run by the community for the community. So they're great. And then one other point about how do we check for the quality of food that gets dropped off. Our community fridge is slightly different than other community fridges. Typically, if you follow this movement, like if you look on Instagram, all the fridges like have their cute little Instagrams and their fridges are all painted, and usually it's just one fridge. And people put their donations there and they take their donations from them too. Some community fridges take packaged goods like sandwiches and stuff like that. Since we're produce only, that makes it a lot easier to check in donations. But so differently than those other fridges, we have a donation fridge as well, which is in a different shed just right near it basically. And we ask people to put in their produce donations in that fridge. And then my team, I've got some student staff as well as volunteers. We go in a couple of times a day. We check in the donations, we weigh them, we check for quality, and then we either store them in our community fridge or we'll put them in one of the back fridges that we have in like our little house. So everything's checked in, everything's weighed. Sometimes people will, like I said, donate the milk and canned goods and other things. So we check expiration dates, even though, by the way, expiration dates don't really mean a lot. We can talk about that in another moment, or you can just Google what expiration dates really mean. Spoiler alert, your milk's probably not spoiled, for lack of a better food pun. And so yeah, I love these models, community fridges. So if anyone wants to explore that option more, I'd love to connect. And then there's some stuff going on in chat. I wanted to catch up a little bit on that. Does anyone else from the community or conversation have any questions that they want to ask?
I think that Daniel asked a question about like senior engagement, which I'll just say that one thing that we do is we table at a lot of community events. So like I tabled at Denver's Ride Your Bike to Work Day, and a lot of the people involved seem to be older. So made some good connections with older people there. But we will attend basically any community event to talk about our services. So the other thing that we do relating to seniors is, I think that Jennifer also mentioned a similar thing, that they deliver food to a senior housing facility. So that's something that we do also. It's a Denver Housing Authority building, mostly for seniors and disabled adults. And that's actually, our office is in the ground floor, and then we run a food program for them.
Yeah, we also do a lot of tabling and outreach to churches and community groups, et cetera. I will say one of the great things about having an app is that we have a lot of data and we have a lot of actionable data. So for example, we know if we're struggling to get volunteers to go to a certain area, we can see that data really quickly and we can focus our recruitment efforts in that area. So lately, most of our recruitment efforts, aside from just some general stuff, have been really targeted to either new areas of growth or areas where we find that we're weaker, we're having slower claim times on the rescues or things like that.
Awesome. All right, we have 5 minutes. I want to ask a little bit about policy. What policies would help your mission? Like, do you know of any impending legislation? There's the Compost Act potentially coming down and some other initiatives that might help promote food rescue and surplus food reduction. And then alternatively, you can answer this one instead. Are there any policies that are currently hindering your mission? And I can speak a little bit on California, for example. There's one policy that will help us promote food rescue, and that's SB 1383, which is a piece of legislation that's going to mandate different operators, businesses of a certain size, either start composting or donating by a certain time. So does anyone have any policies that are helping or hurting you?
I'll kick us off. There's a policy that people, so a question that I often get asked about homegrown food is, what if, you know, as a gardener, what if someone gets sick from my food? Like, are they going to sue me? And this is the world in which we live, right? Where that is a valid question. So there is a piece of federal policy, an act called the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act, which basically means that that if you donate food from that you grew and you did not like intentionally do something crazy to that food and someone gets sick, oh, thanks, Erin, you're not liable. So that's a question that I get a lot. Like, people are nervous because we live in this world where people sue each other all the time. So that was a really helpful one. And that's federal. So it's all around the whole country.
I did not realize that extended to homegrown food. That's actually really awesome. I was actually typing as you were speaking. Yeah, the Bill Emerson Act is great. I would love to see some expansion on it. So, for example, we wanted to take some of the food that we were processing and in our kitchen and turn it into like really healthy meals that would be, you know, microwavable and compete with the convenience factor of frozen meals or like Wendy's or something. But we have a kitchen, you know, it costs a lot of money. We wanted to sell them at a price that would compare like $1, right? So think of those banquet dollar meals. So these would be healthy, you know, produce heavy meals that would sell for $1, and the dollar would mostly cover our expenses. But because of the wording of the Bill Emerson Act, the food would not be covered. The donors would not be protected from liability. So we'd really like to see that expanded. And I would love to see an SB 1383 in every other state as well, because it's amazing.
This doesn't directly address food waste issues, but an important bill that was passed this year in Colorado was SB 21087. It's agricultural workers' rights bill. We're really connected to like farms and local farming organizations, and one of our main community partners was a big sponsor of this bill. And just improving our food system in general by recognizing the people who do the majority of work to bring us fresh food is a huge goal for us. And we're really excited that this bill passed. It's one of the best ones in the United States for protecting agricultural workers. Hope to see other states pick that up, just to generally give us a healthier food system. The bill is called SB 21087, Agricultural Workers' Rights.
That's amazing. And there's so many things I still want to even talk about. I mean, you mentioned farming, and we just got this new study from the World Wildlife Fund that said that farms are actually wasting a lot more than we thought. So we could, at some point, maybe we have another panel, talk about that for days. But I want one final question, just in celebration of World Food Day. So in a perfect world, what do you want World Food Day 2025 to look like?
Every community has a harvest day and everyone's harvesting all the food that they grew, and they're all coming together, sharing it, cooking, eating together.
I'd like to see something like SB 1383 across the country, so that every state is really putting a focus on food rescue and diverting food, edible food from the landfill to people who need it. That should be the norm, not the exception.
Yeah, I would love to see that. We've made some progress on like issues of environmental racism, so that our communities in Denver that want to grow their own food are able to have soil that is good to grow their own food. I would love to see a restoration of more like heirloom and native crops, especially in areas like in the United States where a lot of indigenous foodways were destroyed by colonization. And yeah, just what Jennifer and Kayla were saying. Love to see everybody in every community have the food they want.
Awesome. And Jamie, if you want to send us a picture of that, I believe that was you with the pumpkins, the 34-pound pumpkin. If you want to send that to me, I can include it in the email I'm going to send out after this. Oh, do you want to go grab it? Okay, that would be even better. Okay. I'm so excited. I don't even know what a 34-pound pumpkin looks like.
My favorite rescue ever was one of these like huge 400-pound pumpkins that they have in front of a store. We sent it to a wildlife refuge center, and there's a picture of a very, very happy porcupine sitting on top of this enormous pumpkin.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Those
That's
are
an
two of
actual
them.
pumpkin.
They're just hanging out on my floor right now. A squirrel got a little corner of that one, but I'm just going to cut that off. So yeah, that's my pumpkin situation.
I love that. All right, I think that's a great way to wrap up. Thank you all. Thanks for joining. Happy World Food Day. Go eat that pumpkin. Don't let any go to waste. Enjoy your extra zucchini as well.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.